Well, I love the West Side.
Everybody was from different ethnic backgrounds, but we all got along beautifully.
Everybody was poor, but nobody knew it. We had plenty to eat. Good parents always said, go to school, go to school.
Growing up on the West Side was fantastic, and I think that the neighborhood house had a big part of my life in growing up.
It was like my second home, the neighborhood house.
I see a big home, friendly home. And I can visualize in my mind a big sign, welcome here, welcome.
You know, as a foreign-born kid, it made it kind of easier for me to pick up the language by hanging around the neighborhood house.
And there were always activities for the kids there. And we really mixed as kids. We spent a lot of time at the neighborhood house.
We were very fortunate that my dad came here first and he ran away from the Russian army. And he sent money for us. And we all came over right after the First World War on a boat called the North Star.
I can vividly remember coming to our first dwelling in a coach drawn by horses. And where did my father take the family? To a blacksmith shop. Upstairs was an apartment. Well, I don't remember that condition, but my mother always tells me it was a terrible place. It smelled so bad, and there was roaches 2 inches long running along. And here there's 8 people coming in to live in this house. Well, we weathered the storm. It was a lot better than what was going on in Russia.
My dad became a peddler, horse and wagon peddler, and peddled junk from town to town. My mother, who at the time started to have some children, she took in sewing. And she sewed for neighbors, and eventually brought up 7 boys and 2 girls in a family of 9.
My first memory of neighborhood house was one of our neighbors next door, the Greens they were called, said to me one day, "Your father's going to kill you today. You were so mischievous when he hears what you have done today. Come on over to the neighborhood house with me. I'll introduce you there and you'll find a place to stay and go every day and stay out of trouble."
We were there for sports activities, for arts and crafts, for putting on musicals. They had mothers' clubs for all of the different ethnic groups. And it was very, very interesting how Constance Curry got them all involved. When we were at the neighborhood house, we were all one.
The experience of living on the West Side, we had a lot of fun. There were a lot of Jewish people, there were Lebanese people, there were Mexican people, there were some black people. We all got along. Probably one of my best friends is a Lebanese boy by the name of Johnny Nassif.
We lived about a half a block from the Talmud Torah, which was called the St. Paul Hebrew Institute. I went to Hebrew school. I graduated high school. I still have my picture. They're all gone, but I'm the only one left. And I remember when I was 8 years old, well, I had been going to the Lafayette School, which was on Kentucky and Fenton Street. And my mother had made me a little red, white, and blue dress that I wore on Memorial Day. I came to school and they chose me to hold the American flag while they all saluted the flag. I never had that picture, but one day I'm walking on Robert Street, which is quite far from our house, and I see my little picture in the window in the drugstore. And I went and I told him that that's my picture, and he gave it to me. And do you know, the next Memorial Day, my picture was in the paper, not my name. I still have the picture. And it said, "This little lass garbed as Miss Liberty is saluting the American flag." I still have that picture.
I was the young Shabbos Goy. My brother William, he started first, and they had their clients. I think I ended up with Mrs. Kamenetsky because the only thing I had to do for her was adjust the gas on Fridays after the sun went down. I think people would pick my brothers because that was a policeman's son. And they figured a policeman's son are good kids.
After school, we'd have to go to Hebrew school, and we'd all walk on the right side going down. And by that side, that was the side where the city dump was. And there was an old shack there that a lady they used to call her Maggie White. And Maggie White used to live in that shack, and everybody was afraid of Maggie White. You mentioned her name, and everybody ran. You ran past her house, past the city dump until you got to one of the houses, and then you'd start walking until you get to Hebrew school. On the way back, we'd walk on the opposite side of the street.
We didn't have much grass on the west side. And we would take a streetcar to Lake Phelan or Lake Como and pack picnic lunches and drag them on the streetcar going there. But our most wonderful summers were when we went to Campo Indigo, which was the neighborhood house camp. I learned how to row a boat and paddle a canoe and how to swim. It was great. And my camping days, I'll never forget at Campo Indigo.
Fairfield Avenue was the hub of the shopping market of St. Paul.
There was a store, well, we called it Lebanon. It was called Lebanon. The Stacker family owned that store.
My mother got all her meat from the shop that was called Aaron Goldberg. Just so happened I married his nephew.
You had the meat market smells, the fish market smells, the bakery smells, and of course every spring the water came up to State Street, and so we had the river smells.
I lived at 322 Texas Street, which was about 8 blocks away from the city dump. And as all that garbage got warm, the smell would be terrible, terrible. Couldn't sleep at night.
My mother wasn't a citizen of the United States, so she had to go to school to the neighborhood house, and she finally got her citizenship papers from the neighborhood house.
When I was a junior in high school, I started coaching in a house league, they call it, with Yabi Hessler. And then when I got back out of the service, and he asked me, he says, "Harry, would you take the football team?" I said, "Okay, I'll coach." And I was coaching for $35 a season.
I belonged to this club called the Brandeis Club, named for Louis Dembitz Brandeis. We did many nice things. One thing that I remember, George Kaplan owned Kaplan Paper Box Company. He donated little boxes, pretty boxes. He gave them to us, and we filled them up with a lot of goodies and took them to Minneapolis. I don't know how we ever got there, but we took them to the children of the Jewish orphanage home in Minneapolis. I'll never, never forget that as long as I live.
The West Side and the neighborhood house taught me a lot of good things. It really brought me to character for being a foreign kid. And being lost in the community, it gave me a lot of love. And it was just great.